Development Board for September to order. May we have the roll call, please?
Mr. McGee?
Here.
Ms. Cato?
She's excused.
Ms. Ford? Here. Ms. Hurd?
Here.
Mr. Williams?
Here.
Dr. Jameson?
Here.
Mr. Barber?
Here.
Chairman Toole?
Here. At this time, we will ask if Bishop Samuel Butts from Butts Miracle Temple will lead us in our invocation, after which we'll be led in the Pledge of Allegiance by Mr. Ken McGee.
Let us pray. Our Father God, we thank you for allowing us to come together at this moment in time. We ask that you anoint your people, God, this principality, to do your work in the earth. In Jesus Christ's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And just before we really get going, just so that the members of the audience can know, we do have sign-in sheets here for anyone who wishes to speak on any item that's on the agenda. Next, has everyone had a chance to read through your minutes? Oh, I'm sorry. Pastor Bahu, we welcome you aboard. We're glad to have you on the board.
Well, I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Has everyone had a chance to go through the minutes for Tuesday, August the 13th?
Yes.
At this time, I'll entertain a motion on those minutes.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
I move that the minutes of August 13th be accepted as printed with the necessary corrections if any.
Okay. All right. It has been properly moved and seconded that we accept the minutes of August 13th with any necessary corrections. Is there any discussion on those minutes? Other than one typographical error, I think that they're very well done. Page 7, it should say Miss Leah Riddick. And that Riddick, I know that was just a typographical error. Are you ready for the question?
Question.
All those in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. The ayes have it. The minutes pass for August the 13th. Have you read over the minutes for August the 27th, our special meeting?
Yes.
And if the board is ready, we will entertain a motion on that.
I make a motion that the minutes of August 27th. Second.
All right, it's been properly moved and seconded that the minutes for August the 27th, 2013 be accepted. Is there any discussion? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. And our minutes are passed. Next, we have our staff report. Captain Blanchett was not able to make it, but Lieutenant Young is here, or is he?
I don't see him.
Okay, I couldn't see around the corner. I didn't know who that was over there. But Lieutenant Young is scheduled to be here. He may be running a little late. And what he has done is given him what's called a go-by set of directions where you can actually put an address in and it will pull up all the sexual offenders in that area. we had asked about the sexual offenders and how so many are being directed into the Midtown area. And he was coming to kind of address that issue. He may be running a little late. But when he gets here, should he get here before the meeting is over, we will hear what he has to say. Yes, sir.
When you say directed into the Midtown area, who directs?
Well,
How they do that?
because of the law. So they can't find lodging any other place.
That doesn't,
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, at the last meeting, we were trying to get a map put together to address the 2,500 feet ordinance that was passed for sexual offenders and predators, because I know the statement was made that they were being driven from the B-side area to Midtown. We wanted to put together, and I asked specifically for a map to address that, because if you look at Midtown, we've got churches all over the place, and we've got schools, we've got daycare centers, and unless they already live in those areas, I don't see how they can be driven from the B-side to Midtown, because there's no room for them in Midtown. Basically, if you look at all the churches that we have within the Midtown area, if that 2,500 feet was to come into play, basically that puts them nowhere in Midtown, because if you draw circles around the churches and the daycare centers, schools that we have in Midtown, that kind of wipes them out of anywhere they live in Midtown. So that was, I did send Captain Blanchard a copy of the minutes from last meeting, and we were specifically asking them to show a map. I know you could go into the system and you put in an address, and it'll pull up every sexual predator and offender within a 1 mile radius if that's what you're looking for. But we would want to be most specific and address it directly to the churches and the centers and stuff within the Midtown area. That's what we were looking for, I think.
a question, Charles. When you say driven, what does that mean?
It's not that nobody's steering them. It's like they don't have a place.
Could you substitute the word herded?
No, I wouldn't.
Serious question.
Yeah, I understand that. It's basically saying that if on the B side, if they have some of the same issues that we do. They have churches, they have schools and different things in the same area that would prevent them from being within that 2,500 feet. And when you look at Midtown, I know it's a lot more churches in Midtown area than it would be on the B side, but the same, I don't see where it could be where anyone is steering them, driving or herding them from the B side to Midtown, because there is absolutely no place in Midtown. If you look at where we got in Midtown, I don't see it, and we was asking the police department to help us understand that.
Well, one of the things, let me clarify the word driven. I was simply saying that they had no place else to go. That's what I meant by that. I don't mean that anybody is particularly causing them to go there. But I do know that according to the reports here, sexual battery on a child has gone up 400%. Total sexual battery has gone up 140%. We've got homicides that have increased 100%. We've got some of everything going on, and I do know that if you put in addresses in the Midtown area, you're going to come up with quite a few sexual offenders.
Yes, I've done it for the 32114 zip code, and within a mile radius of South Street, where my wife's center is located, is 146. And all you have to do is put in the either street address or a zip code, and it'll pull all of them up. Actually, the pictures, mug shots, and everything is showing. And believe it or not, the kids at my wife's center, they know all of them that live in their area. And they know what time they're supposed to be in and everything.
So,
But hopefully he can come in and give more specific answers than I can on this.
right. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I would like to say that I brought the same concern up at the police academy last week, and I specifically asked about Nova Road and Bellevue, that wooded area over there, because we did indicate that there were sexual predators living out there, homeless and everything. It was told to me that that was private property that was there. But I also asked you all, I mentioned last time, that the boundaries of Midtown needs to be looked at again, because all of these people that we're saying in Midtown, they're really not in Midtown, but they're walking through the area. And I say that to say this also about the murders, stealing the cars, theft, and everything. Soul City, as we call it, is not in Midtown. So we really need to, someone needs to look at the boundaries of Midtown again and stop pointing their fingers at us.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Any other comment? Yes, sir.
But I think when it comes to the specific boundaries of Midtown, people that live just outside of Midtown do everything else in Midtown. They drive through Midtown. They walk through Midtown. They go to the little corner stores in Midtown. So the fact that they live just outside of Midtown doesn't preclude them from affecting the Midtown area. But I think the issue is that we need to do just what we're doing now. You know, they say the squeaky wheel gets the oil. And the reason this, as you put it, being pushed into Midtown is because they're being pushed away from somewhere else. Eventually, once you start pushing them out, in and out of every way, eventually we'll begin to address the bottom line issue is what do we, at the end of the day, what do we do with sexual predators? And that's the issue isn't them being pushed into Midtown, because they're going to be pushed from Midtown to someone else. And I might not live over in suburbia, but my aunt, my grandmother, my sister who has children might live over in suburbia. So they get pushed over there. So eventually we have to address the issue, the bottom line issue is what do we do with them?
Exactly. It's an issue that cannot be solved overnight. It's something that, in all honesty, I doubt seriously that the city can solve it. That's something that is really going to take a lot of work to get it solved, but it's something that has to be addressed. We just had, in fact, you mentioned at the special meeting, a young lady was raped in the Midtown area. These kind of things are things that we have to look at because it's affecting our community, and it's also we keep talking about trying to raise the tax dollars in this area. Well, the people that would come to try to invest into the area are going to look at all of that. And granted, we know that the boundaries of Midtown are one thing, but if all I get is a report from District 1, and even though District 1 includes more than just Midtown, and all I see is a 400% increase, how likely do you think I would be to move into that area? That's why we have to do something. Because, yes, we understand that the boundaries are somewhat dynamic and not static, but we still have to act in such a way to try to make an improvement in our community.
Kathy Washington, 937 Lockhart Street. I didn't complete a form, but I will do it when I sit. I know for a fact, every morning between 6:45 and 7:15, there is an old Volusia County school bus that's been painted blue. It stops at the corner of Bellevue and MLK, and it lets off approximately 30 individuals every morning. Now, I can't see them going to work anywhere in that area. I go walking at the Sam Butts Park, at the Butts Park, and I see this every morning, and they walk from MLK, the corner of MLK and Bellevue, back to Nova Road. But there's no place for them to work. Now, you figure that out for me. Every morning between 6:45 and 7:15, it's an old school bus that's been painted blue. It lets off about 30 people. Why they're in the neighborhood is beyond me. But who knows whether they go back or how many go back. Just what are they doing in the neighborhood?
That's something to look into.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue on Beachside. I know you didn't mean to, but your wording gave an indication that the Beachside residents are pushing all these people into your neighborhood, which is not happening. They're sleeping on our benches, they're sleeping on our beach, they're causing the same problems over there that they are over here. And I know, because I went through this with Charles Cherry, he was a previous city commissioner, gave him a heart attack. The idea of the number of churches in the Midtown area. He complained about the number of churches. And then when they drew up the Midtown, and we're not talking about the black community as a whole, which is what Charles and I spoke about, but when they drew the Midtown thing, his complaint was that there were so many churches, so many parks, that there wouldn't be enough money generated to do anything because of the number of parks. I don't think there's an iota or an inch of anywhere in your Midtown CRA in which, if you go to Shady Place, there's a park right there. That golf course is considered a park. You go to the next major intersection, there's a daycare center. You go to the next set, there's a little, next to the railroad track, there's a little Live Oaks Park. Next to Butts Park, there is a little park. No matter where you go, Midtown has 9 of the 10 city pocket parks are in Midtown. 75% of all parks in the city are in Midtown. You have 1 or 2 schools in Midtown. You have 1 major church on every block. So there's no place that you can have in that area. Once you get towards Bellevue, when the Main Street, the Midtown CRA does not exist, you could have a problem. That area where there are, I guess you're in your southwest corner, is the only area, and that's not in the CRA, is the only area in which predators could possibly live, and that's only in like a 1-block area.
Where is that again?
You know that south end where the city,
The place you were
you
mentioning.
know what I'm talking about? City Works.
Bellevue and Nova.
Right.
Bellevue and Nova.
Nova, all right. At that end where the city owns a big lot, all right, in that area possibly, but otherwise, it's not a problem for you all in terms of people living there legally. And what do you do with those that are living there illegally that are not reporting? That is your problem.
That's what we're talking about.
Right. So it's not us sending them to you. It is the same problem everywhere.
Please
They're
don't
not
forget
legal.
to fill out one of the sheets. Yes, as we said, we're not saying anybody is sending them. It's simply that they're there.
That was the wording, though, and that's why.
Please use your mic, Dr. Jameson.
Another thing that we talked about earlier, that involves the law enforcement. the issue of a lot of people breaking into unlocked cars. I wanted to talk to the gentleman about that also. I went to Orlando, and what I noticed in a lot of the shopping centers, they have a very huge sign that says, don't leave things in your car, don't do this, that. It's real simple. But in the shopping centers, they have these signs that telling people, be careful about what you do when you're shopping and things like that. And I thought that would be a good idea to put those kinds of signs in the most frequented places. And it reminds people to essentially go back and lock your car, put things in your trunk, and don't hide anything. So, and it seems to be working quite well, because time you pull up to the shopping center, there are the signs, very visible, and it's very simple, very clear. And in fact, when I pulled up to one, it reminded me to put something in the trunk. So I wanted to talk to him about looking at the possibility of using those signs and stop putting those in shopping centers to stop the, burglary of cars. And but he's not here.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
First of all, I would like to say this is a really startling report that I'm looking at from July 28th to August 10th. Lots of great statistics, but it also shows how much crime happens in that shorter period. I feel that, again, we need to really start educating our folks and maybe have law enforcement be more visible as far as deterring some of these crimes. I mean, it just blew my mind. Someone was 16, 18 auto thefts in a matter of a month. And that's really, you go outside, your car is no longer there. So it's something for us to really pay attention to. And I think somewhere along the line, educating, using our churches, using our business, using our families to really get the word out would be the key to help bring in some of these statistics. We have to definitely take back our city and take back our homes. And not live in a prison. I think putting up too many signs and doing too many things would cause businesses and so forth not to come into that area. And I believe if you're going to redevelop something, it's important to start being in a place where you can attract business. And in order to do that, of course, you got to clean up the crime area. So I just thought this was an excellent report. It gives you a snapshot of what's happening in a short time period, but it tells us we have a lot of work to do.
Yes, it does. Did you have something, Mr. McGee?
No. Our statistics, thank you. Our statistics in previous months have shown that we've had improvements, and all of a sudden there's this flare up. But just in behalf of the police who are not here, they have been doing a pretty good job.
They have. Yeah. They have been doing a marvelous job.
That's all I had to say.
This could be something, Mr. Chair, it could be a seasonal kind of thing.
Right.
Kids are out of school for the summer.
That's
so
exactly.
It could be just a seasonal thing. But this is the kind of things that we go over in our neighborhood crime watch and our neighborhood watch meetings. And I have noticed that crime is really, police are doing an excellent job in the city.
Oh, yeah. We don't want to give the indication that they're not doing their job. One of the things that I think is going to be imperative is maybe if we can get a group of churches or someone or a private sector to come together to put together some after-school programs, since the city doesn't have the funding to do it. Maybe we can get some private sectors to do it, because it's something that's needed, because we all know if a child doesn't have something to do, they'll come up with something. And some of them are a lot more creative than we were.
Well, a lot of it is investment. I know in my area of Getting, we sponsor a football league and cheerleading squads and so forth, but it's an investment. and we have to reinvest back into our young folks and give them something creative. There's a lot of energy, a lot of creativity and so forth. We have to channel it in a positive way.
Exactly. All right. Let's look at our code enforcement report. We've got a good printout here that deals with quite a bit. We've got a wonderful breakdown on this. One of the things I can say is it mentions a lot that was overgrown south of 640 Marion Street, which is next door to me. The gentleman went and cut half of the lot and didn't cut the other half. Okay? So they're doing a lot. I have to admit, code enforcement has their hands full, and they're really jumping on some things. But we just want to make mention, they made a printout here to exactly which ones they're really working toward, trying to get resolved. One of the things that I do appreciate is that you all have been saying and mentioning things that need to be looked into, and they are working on it. They are working on it. And this list gives us a pretty good idea of the overgrowth of lots and junk vehicles and trash and debris, and those are things that really are things that can be resolved fairly quickly.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am.
how can the policemen pass down streets and see 18-wheelers parked on the wrong side of the road for 3 or 4 days and say nothing to the people or put a warning sign in the window? I'm wondering, how can that be done? Yes, when Butts Park first opened and people started, I guess they were living in the apartments, parking 18-wheelers there. I mentioned about they were parking on the grass. We're parking in the neighborhood, and they do not supposed to be in the neighborhood. Now, well, it has been going on and on and on the corner of Bellevue, on the corner Bellevue and School Street, parked on the wrong side of the road back then. And they're not there every week, but the number of policemen that pass by there, they must see it. And I want something done. Another thing too, how can code enforcement be in Midtown and the policemen too, and pass down MLK on the corner, especially Magnolia and MLK, and the people are parking up on the sidewalks in front of the business. If they don't have places to park somewhere and walk.
Those are good questions, and none of us can answer them.
Well.
But they are good questions and valid questions.
Therefore, what would be done about it? Will someone notify the police department?
We can pass that on to Captain Blanchard, ask him to look into it. One of the things that we can say is that as we begin to enforce some of these things, it will lessen the occurrences. One of the biggest problems right now is that there's mixed signals being sent out. Because anytime you allow someone to continue to go on and do something, you're sending a signal that's all right for that person. That's right. But then you stop another person. Parking on the wrong side of the road that's a Florida state law. Okay, that only the police can answer. why they don't give the tickets. Okay, I can't answer that one. I do know, I see code enforcement out trying to enforce some things. Now, I've seen them myself. I saw, in fact, saw 2 code enforcement officers over on Cedar Street just this past week, dealing with a particular house that we can constantly have trouble with people going in the back of that house. So a lot of it is manpower, I do know that. But some of it, something as simple as giving somebody a ticket, I don't know.
And, Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I know one of the answers is, it's a very, very simple solution. When you see something, make a call to Captain Blanchett.
Use your mic.
As I was saying, and I know some of this, there's a very, very simple solution. When you see something, and if a truck is parked there, chances are he's someplace asleep or he's gone someplace. So the truck is liable to be there for a while. Just simply call Captain Blanchett. And the thing that I do know is that he'll get on it. And just, and he'll take it from there. But if we see something, I mean, it's our responsibilities as citizens, and in particular people that are on this board, that if we see something that, habitually is being, especially habitually being done, that we just simply make a call. And the thing that I've learned is the police, they will respond.
I understand exactly what you're saying. Don't think I don't make phone calls. But it's just that over a year, and sometimes, I just want to give up, because if I see it, they see it. A big red 18-wheeler parked on the north side of Bellevue facing east. I'll do my part, okay? The next time I see it, I'll do what I need to do. More of it.
Chairman Tully, and I would say, in what we hear today, whether it's code, police, or other concerns that the board raises, I know Charles will be on the phone and conveying that to the police, to code, or whomever, and make sure it gets to the right people. There's follow-up, and it does get done. I mean, I know sometimes we don't have control over the entire situation, but we will make sure that the information gets to the right people.
I'd just like to say a typical example would be what I do is I go through the minutes and I pull out any things that have to do with code enforcement or police department, and I send that part to them and ask them to address it, like the email that I sent you regarding the issues that we had with the police department the last meeting. So I take notes. I do read the minutes and go through and make sure we try to address any issues that come up for the last meeting. And so I will be contacting them and trying to find out, have an answer for you next month.
Okay. Thank you both for that input. Next, we come to our action item, the Large-Scale Comprehensive Plan Amendment, DEV 2013-082, Midtown Future Land Use.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Jason Jeffries with the Redevelopment Office. What you have before you is the comprehensive plan amendments. This is an administrative request. This is necessary for the implementation. There's a necessary step we need to take in terms of the implementation of the Midtown Master Plan. Just so I can give you an overview of the process, I believe I have in the date, on September 19th, 2012, the City Commission approved the amendments to the Midtown Master Plan, or to the Midtown Redevelopment Plan, which basically adopted the Midtown Master Plan that was prepared by FAMU, that this board, I know, was very involved with in the development of it. We are now proceeding to Land Development Code amendments, which will implement the zoning necessary to ensure the land development code reflects what is in the Midtown master plan, what has been presented as the different design districts as part of that master plan. And as you know, the city is currently working on or is putting the final touches on its Clarion, the land development code rewrite being done by Clarion and Associates. And I think our intent is to merge these two efforts at around the time that code is adopted. We'll be adopting land development codes, if not at the same time or soon after, for the Midtown master plan. So in terms, to be able to rezone the properties to the design standards and the zoning standards and development standards that are recommended by the Midtown master plan, there's a middle step we have to take, which are these comprehensive plan amendments. As you may be aware, every city in Florida is required to have a comprehensive plan, which designates as part of the there's many elements to comprehensive plan, policies that deal with all different types of administrative functions of the city, one of which is future land use designations. And any type of rezoning that we have, or any type of zoning that's on land, is required by state law to comply or be consistent with the comprehensive plan. In the Midtown master plan, through that planning process, you've identified a new vision for the Midtown area. In some aspects, it's not necessarily consistent with what is the adopted comprehensive plan. So now what we need to go through is amend the comprehensive plan so it now reflects what's in the Midtown master plan. So what you have on page 2 are in the redevelopment element of the comprehensive plan, there are certain future land use categories that are for the Midtown area. And what you have starting on page 2 of the staff report are the proposed either revisions or new categories which will line up with the Midtown master plan. So what's being proposed to do is right now there is some future land use designations called office residential transition that is being proposed to be struck from the comprehensive plan. Yes?
Before you get too far in this, I need to better understand something.
Use your mic.
Oh, I beg your pardon. The zoning restrictions of the current code will tell me that a building may be 4 stories high and it must be set back 20 feet and specifics of that nature. The guidelines that were indicated to us by FAMU has a different way of describing.
Yes.
It's like a volume. Could you sort of some insight into that?
Well, they are recommending different zoning districts as part of or different districts within the plan. They do still have setback criteria, similar to what our current redevelopment plan is. It has height standards. Many of the same standards we have in our current code will those same type of standards are in the new zoning districts, but they might be, depending on what they're proposing to have more of that urban look that they're trying to achieve in the Midtown master plan, those standards will change.
When you say those standards, which standards are we talking about?
The setbacks, it just depends on what...
They're going to, so what you're describing to us tonight will take into account changes in the code specifics in the area that have been indicated by our consultants.
Yes.
If you can understand that sentence, you're doing very good.
Although what we're basically dealing with tonight is not so much the setback standards and all those specific development standards, we're dealing with the future land use, only the generalized future land use.
That's just something I needed to understand.
Right. Now, this is like the first step was getting the Midtown Master Plan approved. This is the next step, which is we got to amend the comprehensive plan so it's consistent with the recommendations in the master plan. These are just various steps that we have to go through under state law to implement the plan.
Thank you.
So, as I was going to say, the office residential transition, that is an existing future land use designation in the Midtown area. We are proposing to strike that. The level 1 residential, we're just proposing to, it currently makes references to a different policy in the redevelopment. We're going to put specific language, which is consistent to level 1 residential throughout the city, which is densities not exceeding 8 dwelling units per acre. That is the same also with level 2 residential. There, we're putting as densities not exceeding 20 units per acre. Again, this is consistent with what is done throughout the city. Commercial retail, this is another existing designation. We're just putting in the specifics that the floor area ratio will not exceed 3, which is referred to as FAR, and the residential densities will not exceed 40 units per acre. Again, this is consistent throughout the city. The commercial office is going to be designated as what we call commercial transition, and this is a new designation. It's going to be largely used on those areas along some of the corridors like George Ingram and MMB, and as it was outlined in the Midtown Master Plan. And that is an area which will allow for retail or personal service or office and multifamily uses with either a FAR not to exceed 3 or a residential density not to exceed 40 dwelling units per acre.
What do you call transition?
That is how there was a transitional zoning in the Midtown in the master plan. And so this is to line up with that recommendation. Then the following use is mixed use, is a medium intensity. This is a new land use destination for the Midtown area, and this is really designed, there are those different neighborhood nodes that the Midtown plan outlines, plus the neighborhood center, the Midtown Center that they have near the intersection of ISB and MLK. That use designation we do have medium intensity already in some of our other redevelopment districts. We're just going to bring that over to use it for those different neighborhood center districts where you wanted to create that urban mixed-use centers that are outlined in the Midtown Master Plan. And you'll see that there's kind of specific language about ground floor retail uses, professional offices, entertainment uses, multifamily residential uses. And then the one key, if you look, these developments, it talks about it being consistent with the Midtown Master Plan and be designed with an urban form and generally not include auto-related uses. So this strengthens, I think, some of the direction that the Midtown, what is in the Midtown Master Plan. I know what this board has discussed in the past as it relates to creating the future in Midtown.
Is this all of the land uses, these categories, is all of them?
For the Midtown area.
Why did you eliminate churches?
In the future, we're not going to have if you look at the proposed map that was attached, we're not going to have a specific church land use designation. That doesn't mean we're not going to allow for churches in certain other zoning districts, but we're not going to have a specific land use category for them in Midtown.
I don't understand that.
The current land use classification that we have in our comprehensive plan, and typically comprehensive plans are really general. They're really broad. A land use classification might say low-density residential, but you might have 8 zoning classifications that are consistent with it. So the current comprehensive plan is atypical in picking out such a narrowly described use in a land use classification. Typically, and this is part of the move that the city's going to, land use classifications are just very broad. So we could, for example, in adopting a land development code, decide that churches are consistent with residential land uses. That's a zoning code issue, not a comprehensive plan issue. So it's not intended to go nail churches or get rid of them or anything like that.
And what Attorney Gross is saying, when we come back to you, again, this is like step 2, And after this goes through the process, we'll be coming back to you with the specifics on the zoning districts, and you'll see some of those zoning districts will have as conditional uses churches in them, allowing them. But they would still be consistent with some of these, they will still be consistent with certain land use districts.
So, based on what you're saying then, the government institution and churches would be stricken, and the comp plan would then, over the broad spectrum, what would that come under?
Churches?
Yes.
I believe that, and if you look at the Midtown Master Plan, I believe there's some talk of allowing, I believe the zoning districts that will correspond to the transitional districts is where we're looking to put churches as conditional use, especially on where you already have them, quite a concentration existing on George Ingram. Now, if the board's more comfortable, we could put specific language in that particular use, the transition, the commercial transitional about churches being in there.
I'm concerned with that not being here. It seems like every kind of building is specified in here, but churches is not, and we have an awful lot of churches. So I'm concerned that one day you're going to get into trouble with churches not being in here, because it might allow churches to come up just in and everywhere. I can put a church in my house. I can have a building, and I can make that a church. If you don't be a little bit more specific about churches, I'm just concerned that that may come into a problem later on.
Chairman Tooley, I hear that concern. We've been hearing it for a long time about exactly how to deal with the churches that are in every district and how they propagate in these different places, and I think the best way, and what Ben was talking about, is as we get into the specifics of the zoning, talk about the uses, where they can be, what the requirements are to be in a certain district. That's the place you can really address it. I don't think the comprehensive plan, the future land use map, is the way to do it. In fact, I think it limits both the municipality and the property owner in terms of what you can do on that particular property with respect to church. I just think it more complicates the use of some of this property, because a lot of these churches are in our commercial district, and we'd like to see those return to commercial perhaps in the future. So I would say the place to deal with the churches will be in the Land Development Code, and if we have concerns there as we see the Clarion report come back, that rewrite, that's where we should address our concerns and as we go forward.
Now, just for clarity, if I may ask, if I'm hearing you correctly, you're saying if churches are allowed, and for example, you'll put them under level 1 residential, that means they'll only exist within that land development area. You can't have them under the commercial retail or commercial transition office. They'll just be specific to that general area. Is that correct? Or would they be able to be in different level areas, whether it's level 1 residential, level 2 residential, commercial?
Well, zoning codes, this is more true historically, zoning codes are easier to change over time than comprehensive plans.
Understand.
And so one of the reasons why you want to maintain that level of flexibility in the zoning code is as conditions change, you can add or add to or subtract from. So if when the city did its initial rewrite of the Land Development Code, they decided to allow churches in some of the higher density residential areas and some of the office type zoning categories, but not in lower density residential areas. The code could be amended later on to do that. And to put it another way, if we list churches in every land use category in the comprehensive plan right now, but there aren't any zoning categories that allow them, they still need to be approved under zoning. So again, the comprehensive plan is supposed to be a really high-level view of what's allowed.
I just want some clarity with it, because sometimes we can also limit ourselves as to where we place them.
Well, speaking of limitations, one thing I want to remind the board members, and this isn't even necessarily directed solely at the idea of churches, but when you look at the way these uses are described, for example, on page 3 where it lists mixed uses,
Yes.
and the first item is medium intensity, it reads an area generally containing. And you'll see a lot of that generally or primarily language, which actually means if somebody were going to make
Keep
the
certain
argument.
areas.
Well, generally doesn't mean exclusively.
Exactly.
So if one of you was reading a land use category and you thought, wow, a church wouldn't fit in that, well, that only says generally.
Right.
So again, zoning can be, much more specific and tailored to the surrounding properties and those uses, and that's what you want to do in a zoning.
And I understand.
inquiry,
Thank you for clearing that up. And I understand it's about a perception, a look. Thank you.
Jason, could you give us a sort of an idea of what conditional use means?
Well, conditional use in our, and this is going to change a little bit with the new Clarion Code, but right now, the way...
More or less the purpose of it.
Well, essentially, the way our code works today, you have different zoning districts, and then you have these tables that say what are the permitted uses, what are the conditional uses. A use that is permitted is allowed as of right as long as it meets all the setback requirements. When they're a conditional use, it generally has some additional specific criteria that particular use has to meet above and beyond the permitted uses, above and beyond the setback requirements that all the other uses have to meet. So generally, just to give you an example, I think right now, our churches and schools under our current code, their conditional uses, they have larger setback requirements. They got to have larger parcels. Their minimum parcel requirement is larger than a general other permitted use in that zoning district.
But conditional uses could be applied to churches in, I'm going to say, zones that are not specifically called out.
Right.
Which would allow...
We're going to get to these level specifics.
It would not allow your living room, though, you bear in mind.
You will get to these specifics, as I think what Ben Gross is saying, is we'll get to these level specifics when we get to the zoning districts.
May I say something? I agree what has been said about churches being not being listed here. It seems as though we step back as though we are afraid of something when we start talking about the churches. We talked about this before because I brought it up in commercial buildings and things like that, and you all told me, I believe, we have to be careful about what we say about churches and the religion and things of the sort, because we pointed out to you all certain places in the community that has opened for churches, and every time I brought this up, I got tired of bringing it up because you just said, Mrs. Hurd, forget it. You just being a dead horse. I don't know, because it's who the property belonged to, where it was located, or what. But I do feel as though, I understand what you're saying, it should be listed, but it just seems so we move back a step when it comes up.
I think what you're being told about churches, we do need to note, there are certain federal laws in terms of protections and the First Amendment rights of churches, and basically, I think Ben can jump in here, but the case law is that we have to treat churches in the same way we treat any other general place of assembly.
That is if they come through code enforcement.
No. This is as we deal in terms of regulating churches through the Land Development Code. We are, in the clarion draft of the new code, and what we have to do is we can't pick and choose where we deal with that issue. We have to take a comprehensive look, and I believe in the new draft code, there has been a readdressing to some extent, as far as we feel we can go in terms of still complying with the First Amendment rights of churches, dealing with churches in general, and then I think we're comfortable with some of what you're going to see in the draft code as land development code zoning as it relates to the Midtown area. You're going to see us dealing with some of those specifics, so it comes more in compliance with the Midtown master plan.
I don't think what you said needs any correction. We've discussed the federal law. We've discussed the federal law before, and that's pretty much what I advise the board. We can't discriminate against churches because they're churches, but if we regulate other types of uses that involve mass assemblies and they're similar to churches, we have to treat churches like that. So,
and we're going to do that when we get to the new zoning districts as we deal with Midtown.
When do you anticipate this complete, this project?
Read as the timeline.
Timeframe end of the year. That's where we want to be, because our commitment is to get that land development code rewritten and be ready to come out the door with the initial rezonings. It isn't everything, and part of this process that we're involved in now is to be able to end up with a map that shows us what underlying properties in terms of zoning, when we move this through, can actually then not require a land use change, and you can rezone them when the new land development code, the new districts that we're creating go in place. We have that opportunity to actually rezone some of those properties immediately. We don't have to wait for this amendment, which takes until to go through, we're talking about next summer.
Yeah, just so you understand, the probably the last bit, you have in your packet the map. Generally, the changes, unless you want to get into any specific parcels, but generally the changes are occurring along the major corridors where you see these districts are changing from either retail use or the office transition to the new commercial transitional use. You see where the Midtown Master Plan designates those neighborhood centers. That's where we're designating that medium intensity mixed use. And then there are some changes to the school district to line up with what was recommended for the Midtown Master Plan as it relates to the institutional uses for Bethune-Cookman University. The process going forward, we are right now, we have to finish up an impact analysis, which is necessary for the planning board review. That's just necessary information we need to have to forward to the state. Our goal is to get this to the planning board at their next month's, at the October meeting. They are the local planning agency designated for the city, so their review is required, and recommendation to the city commission. Once we have the review by planning board, we will then, they will and make their recommendation. I would imagine December is when city commission will take action on this. I believe it's by resolution to transmit this to the state. And then there's a state review, and there is some information on page 4 of the report just about some of the changes that were made in 2011 to the state's review. Essentially, what the legislature did in 2011, they kind of restricted the amount of review and comment that the state can have. So basically, if we give the type of the impact analysis that we're doing, and as you'll see, I'm trying in the report tie this to an innovative planning strategy, which is a type of something as a keyword that's come out of some of those changes that were made in 2011. I think we make that justification. We should have minimal state comments And then once the state does review it, it will come back for adoption by the city commission. But that state review by the state planning agency is required. And that's
one question.
What puts it on the timing to next summer.
One of my questions is, I see in the key commercial amusement, but I don't see it on the map.
I think that's just that they must have. We have new personnel doing mapping, so it's just a little typo by our. But it's not. That is a use that the city has, but it's not in Midtown.
Okay.
We'll get that.
Would the mixed use be someplace where we could have movie theaters and things of that nature?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
One thing I want to point out is the intent of this map. I'm not sure it's wholly accurate, and like Jason said, we're dealing with some technical issues with getting the maps right. We have a new person on board just started with us that can help us correct some of these things. But I want to point it out while we're here at this meeting and make sure we're clear about any areas that are not consistent with the with the master plan map. Because the idea is to, and I think what I see north of Orange does do that. It's very accurate. I'm going to question two areas, Jason, and my apologies that I didn't get a chance to look at the south end before on this, but I just want us to know that area between Whitehall and Marion, I'm thinking that might be something different there. If you have the master plan.
That was neighborhood transition identified in the master plan.
Neighborhood transition. Okay. You know what that is that's an area that we've been talking about as a concern. That's the Thurman House in that area where we have a lot of that land across from there, and we were looking at infilling with some residential. We had talked about in the Midtown plan at one time putting in into that area the more of an institutional type development of some kind. There was a discussion of a community garden and doing some other types of more intensive developments right in the middle of this historic neighborhood. And I know after we went through the final discussions at the end of the Midtown Board's approval, we talked about the fact that area we want to be looking at possibly changing that. Thank you. And so that's an accurate representation of what the map shows today, and so is the other area that I looked at that's south of Fremont down to Shady Place. And those are, what's interesting about that is it's just we're creating some of those higher intensities, but they reflect the Midtown master plan as it is today, and Jason was just showing it to me, but I raise as just a concern that when this board, and some of you are new to the process here, but when we went through that, the area in particular concern was right there in Whitehall because it was an old established historic neighborhood, single family, and we were introducing right in the middle of it a concept for some additional uses, and so I guess we stay with this for now, but I'm going to just say this board at the time that we went through the adoption did raise some concerns. Okay, I'll leave it at that. I just want to go on record that's one area as we move forward. We might want to question whether or not we keep proceeding with it. I'd like to hear your comments if you have any at this time about that area.
If I'm not mistaken, we came out of that meeting saying that the assisted living that was considered to be there was actually going to be moved to another area rather than using the Whitehall area for that. Also, I'm kind of concerned about south of Fremont here. I'm looking and seeing that's on the legend that says that would be commercial transitional.
On
question-
Martin Luther King?
No, I'm looking at Fremont, between Marion and Sycamore, down to Shady Place.
Right, I was going to point out, that is a typo, mapping error there. Where the orange color is, the solid orange, that should be level 2 residential.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
That's good. And that, see, it's, the intent, when we were going through this whole process, and this board was very clear about it, is we want to preserve our neighborhoods. We don't want to introduce, something in the middle of the residential neighborhood. We took many decades to establish. We want to have complete streets. We want to have not a bunch of dead ends, and we want to have areas where we can put those houses back in. That's part of the challenge as we go forward here. When we dispose of property, we want to be able to have houses built back in those neighborhoods because we've torn down so much of our housing stock. And I think when Professor Huffman went through this whole process, he did try to introduce some higher densities into that, but he wanted to see the front porch come back. He wanted to see the parking come back on the street in front and utilize the alleys and the other areas to come around the back of the house. And so if he were here, I know he'd want to emphasize that as we go forward, that we don't go forward with something that's going to introduce what would be more of a problem than a solution.
Right. Okay.
So I'd like to know if the board thinks that it would be appropriate to number one, leave the the only thing, because I'm hearing, Jason, that we've got the level 2 in the area south of Fremont.
Yes.
Okay, so that's a typo. The other one is between Cedar and South Street, basically Whitehall to Marion in general, and what includes the Thurman House. That's an area that I think we were all agreeing at the end after we sent on the plan to the commission that said, maybe we don't want to go there. That was an idea that got into the plan and into the drawings. But I would certainly, it's my opinion that that's not what you want to do in that area. I think you want to come back and reintroduce single-family homes as we originally proposed.
Right, because right now that's showing commercial transitional.
Right.
That means that there are, just off the top of my head, about 7 to 8 houses that could not be rebuilt. And these are historical properties.
And you might be able to have a mix of residential and other things, but
right.
It's just, what are we going to recreate? And we were talking specifically about assisted living facility, and I think we got away from that. There's a better place to put that, and that was the conversation we were having, but it was really at that point after the fact. But again, the Midtown master plan is intended to be our guide, our vision, and what we want. But when you start putting it into regulation as future land use, now you're really starting to get to a point where those things are harder to change.
Help me out. Where did we find was a better place to put the assisted living?
Well, I think the land use and that we're talking about now, Jason, do you recall where that would be? It would be some kind of a special use or conditional use.
Oh, you mean under the draft?
Right.
The draft.
But I think it was intended to be in that mixed.
The medium mixed uses?
Yeah, that area, for example, when we were looking at the area in there with, it's the same area you see that was used there, but would be along El Dorado and in that area, potentially in parts along Orange Avenue. and also on George Ingram. Those are some of those areas.
Place what on El Dorado?
Well, back on El Dorado, you see there's a mixed use, commercial that is to the...
Okay, just give me a second to find El Dorado.
South of Magnolia.
Okay.
And to the, between MLK and the tracks, railroad tracks.
I would disagree with that.
Because you got a nightclub there.
We have there was a nightclub there.
Well, most of that
is
is
single, the street is, the street is narrow. It should be a one-way street, as wide as it is.
What I'm going to suggest, and let's talk about the assisted living facility, is something that is not, we've come to no conclusions here. We'll need to go back and check where it might be in that land development code rewrite.
That wouldn't be a good place at all.
Okay.
Not at all.
Right, and that goes back to zoning and where it's going to be zoned, and then if it's a conditional use or special uses, so that there are some locational decisions to be made. You're not going to put it on a small lot. It's not going to be on you don't want it on your commercial corridor necessarily where you want, say, retail. So those are the kinds of details that get vetted in what you're doing with the both the rezoning and the land development code itself. But it was something that was raised in relationship to the plan and what we were going to do at one time and talked about. And I really thought we were trying to get away from that, and now's the time to raise it.
Yes.
So what you're saying is two things.
Sit up to your mic, please, Doc.
What you're saying is, this is an error over here.
The solid orange.
Fremont.
Yeah.
That's the error.
Well,
And-
I want to make sure I'm clear. The solid orange that's on, I believe it's the south end of MLK between Fremont and Shady Place. That should have been level 2 residential.
Okay. And this solid orange, white hall is also an error.
No, well,
it's not an error.
No, the general what we did is the process was we took the master plan as it drew what's in the master plan, what it drew as the boundaries. We basically tried to line up all these recommended land uses to what is in the recommended what is in the Midtown master, what's been adopted. The only see park uses on the maps. For instance, where the Midtown, I believe it's the Midtown Center is at the corner of Nova and George Ingram, and then you have I think it's Daisy Stocking Park on MMB and Joe Harris Park. Those two parks, those are already designated as park uses, and the state has, especially if we've gotten grants from the state for doing any type of improvements at those parks, they look for us to keep those as designated as park uses. So what we did, instead of putting the land uses that they recommended, what's recommended in the Midtown Master Plan, we basically left those as designated parks because they are parks, and I don't think the city has any intention of selling those parks. Other than that, every boundary you see here should follow, except for that one typo or mapping error down there, should follow what is in the recommended master plan. I think what Reed's bringing up is a question of some conversation that occurred at the Midtown board about, do we still go with the recommendations of putting neighborhood transitional use in that block between Cedar and South Street near Whitehall, and I believe that's that's the location of the Thurman house is in that location, and the neighborhood transition use that's proposed in the block from Fremont and Marion, where it's a stripe, the orange stripe.
Right.
Those are in the Midtown Master Plan, but I guess this is probably a time now, if there had been previous discussions about really moving forward those aspects, this would be the time now not to proceed, kind of recommend not proceeding with those as those uses, and probably instead for the one up near Cedar Street, you would probably continue that to be level 1 residential. And the one near Fremont, that one you would recommend level 2 residential. And that would help with our impact analysis too, because you're talking about most of these other changes, and we won't know it's totally done, but I would suspect because we're just changing retail use. If you look at the impacts because of what the FARs and the land use densities along these corridors, I don't think we're going to have much impact in terms of services. But when you start changing something from a level 1 residential to a neighborhood transition, you're talking about a larger potential impact. So this could probably help us with the analysis.
I'm confused. Okay. I'm assuming what I heard is that this should not be this commercial transition area, although it's in the plan.
Right.
But you're about to put this into the land use.
No, the comprehensive plan.
Well, comprehensive plan.
Yeah.
Okay. But if we don't want it, I'm just wondering, can we?
Now is the
change
time
that?
to say that we don't want it.
Okay, so can we change
Yes.
that?
Yeah.
A part of your recommendation to the planning board, yes.
Okay.
And that's, I think, why Reed's bringing it up. Now's the time to do it.
I thought you said we don't want it, and he's saying it's going in there.
No.
Okay.
I'm just presenting, I'm sorry, what I did, I took the master plan, and I had the IT people just draw up the map as the master, as the recommendation, but now's the time, as we go through this process, you want to make any changes, now's the excellent time to make that recommendation to the planning board.
And how do we change that? Now?
In your motion.
Okay, all right.
Not yet. So it's not entertaining a motion just yet. Because we need to clarify what we're doing. Because we keep starting talking about it, then we jump on to something else. Okay? What we're dealing with is from the east side of Division to Marion Street between Cedar and South Street. Instead of having that as transitional, leaving it as level 1. And from Sycamore to Marion between Fremont and Shady Place, instead of that being transitional, it would become level 2. Yes, ma'am.
I make a motion that we change the land use for those particular areas to what you said.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. It has been properly moved and seconded that we change the mapping here from transitional use between Division and Marion, between Cedar and South, into residential 1. And between Sycamore and Marion and Fremont and Shady Place to residential 2.
Mr. Chair, before
Yes.
you call the question, you're going to allow public comment?
Yes. Yep. All right. And at this time, is there any public comment?
Did you all have a map? Oh.
Okay. I don't see any public comment. Are you ready for the question?
Question?
All those in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. All right. Now, we need to determine if we're going to accept this altogether. So we will entertain a motion for that at this time. Dr. Jameson?
Okay.
I'll make a motion that we accept this, what is it called?
Comprehensive plan amendment.
Comprehensive plan that has been presented to us.
All right. With the necessary modifications.
Necessary changes.
All right.
Second.
All right. It has been properly moved and seconded that we accept and move this comprehensive plan amendment onto the planning board. I know that's what you meant when you said that. With any necessary corrections. And is there any public? Yes.
John Nicholson, 413 North Grandview Avenue. FYI, 25 years ago when I moved here, I was putting together a land package, and when talking to the planning department, one of their comments was for the beach side was to get rid of all churches, schools, and parks because there were no need for them on the beach side. They were redeveloping the beach side, and they wanted all of those away, plus the people. They didn't want any of the residents, they didn't want any single-family homes on the beachside because that was not the location for single-family homes. It was the ideal location for high-rises, condos, things of that nature. So when they sit there and tell you they have no plans on doing something, take that with a grain of salt. They did take away 2 of our parks. They didn't sell them, but there are 99-year leases and there are buildings on them. All right? We have one park called Lenox Park. There was an opportunity for Marriott to come into town, and they had given, with an intent, 3/4 of Lenox Park to put a parking garage, a 5-story parking garage that would put it in the backyard of the residents on both sides of it. I mean, there was not even a street. It went side to side. The only reason why that deal died was they wanted no parking on the beach. So that died. Otherwise, our park, one of our larger parks, would have vanished. They would have ended up with 2 portables, and that was it. So be careful when you're told by staff. I mean, they don't mean to do that, but in the future, anything can happen. And when they are looking to get rid of churches, it can happen. There are churches that die every day. And some of your historic churches, there's one on South Martin Luther King, I can't remember, that's like 110 years old or something like that. Its members could die out. It could go, to the point where it couldn't survive, and it could be bulldozed. So never say never. So just be cautious. Thank you.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question?
Question?
All those in favor, let it be known by the sign aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, like sign. And we have passed the comprehensive plan amendment with the necessary modifications. I do see that Lieutenant Young has come in. Does anyone have any more questions for Lieutenant Young? You can come on up, sir. We do appreciate you coming. I know it's kind of busy today.
Yes, sir, it is, and I would have loved nothing more than for this meeting to adjourn without me having to come up here. But I don't want to have to answer to my captain tomorrow. But I do apologize for my tardiness. I got stopped on my way here. I had to address something, which is why I came in a few minutes late. But I'm here in response to an email that was sent to Captain Blanchett by Mr. Bryant in reference to the Daytona Beach's approach to sexual predators and sexual offenders throughout the Midtown redevelopment area. And I have to admit, I'll make this disclaimer up front. I'm not the resident expert in how we handle, but I will do my best to answer your questions as to our approach to the sexual offenders and predators in the area. One of the questions was in reference to a ordinance, which I have before me. It's ordinance number 11-222, which states basically in a nutshell that no sexual offenders or predators are to reside within 2,500 feet of schools, daycare centers, public parks, and private playgrounds and/or churches. And as you all know, we have several of those throughout the Midtown redevelopment area. I believe right now we have about 78 total sexual offenders and predators that we're monitoring district-wide, west side, and we have about 66 that we're monitoring over on the beach side. Your email actually sparked quite a bit of a conversation over at the police department as to what all we're doing to combat it. I can tell you right off the bat, all sexual predators and offenders are required to register with the state within 24 hours of them being released. And the program that we have set up at the police department, every officer, regardless of rank, is assigned a sexual offender or predator within the city. The predators have to be, it's state law, they have to be checked on at least every 3 months. And the majority of the predators also have ankle monitors, and they're usually on probation, and they also have probation officers that go out and check those. As far as the offenders, it's not a requirement, but it's more of a recommendation that we check on them also every 3 months. That's per the state, but per our direction from the PD, we make it mandatory that we check on each and every sexual offender every 3 months. I spoke to the female officer that's in charge of our database on my way in, and one thing I'm going to have to do as far as follow-up is get with a couple of our CompStat analysts, because we need to go out and do some surveying just to see how many sexual offenders we have that are living within that 2,500 feet of the parks, because they were telling me about an attorney that one of the big things they're doing is when you do not want a sexual offender or predator in your area, they're purposely going and building parks. They're putting the parks there as long as you got a slide or a jungle gym, then by law, a sexual offender cannot live within that footage of the complex. So now this is a thing that's going on statewide where you have these complexes that purposely going and placing jungle gyms, sliding boards, and swing sets in these areas to kind of keep these sexual offenders out. So that's one thing that I think we're honestly behind the 8 ball on as far as going back out and doing our surveys to see exactly how many, because I can tell you we do have some that are in violation. I know just last week they picked up one that was living right across the street from Seabreeze High School over on the beach side. So, I mean, as they're brought to our attention, we're acting on it and we're going out and we're trying to, arrest them. But you have to remember also on that ordinance, being that it's a city ordinance, it's a misdemeanor, it's like a $100 fine. But then from there, we put the pressure on them, say, hey, look, because of this ordinance, we can't allow you to retain residency here. You need to move on, find somewhere else outside of that boundary. Also, another thing I wanted to bring up was this. I don't know if you all familiar with that Dateline NBC show, To Catch a Predator? I don't know if you all are aware, but we do have an investigator that's assigned with us at the PD. That's all he does every day, Monday through Friday. He's sitting in a room on a computer, and he'll go in like he's a teenage girl or sometimes a underage young man, and he'll have conversations with predators and offenders. He told me 70% are local, but then you have the 30% that are outside. But overall, the statistics are showing us that it's not so much the ones that we're aware of and that we're monitoring, it's the ones that we don't know about that are coming in. I know you guys keep up with the news in the paper, the ones that come in out of town on a business trip, and then they log on to the Wi-Fi and they see what's in the area, and they, chat up a young man or young lady online, and then the next thing you know, we're knocking on the door, we set up a location, and they're responding to that location, and we're making the arrest that way. So in this day and age, with the social media, with the Facebook, these various chat rooms, that's more of their their method, their mode of operation more so. I'm not saying we don't still have the perverts that are driving around Joe Harris Park looking at the little girl on the swing, because, I mean, we still have some of those, but the majority are online.
Okay.
I was trying to make sure that was all that I had on my list. The number one question that you asked, Mr. Bryant, you asked if there was a map that we had. And I printed out 10 instructional guides. What that is we actually have a site that's right on the city webpage, and those are the 7 steps it walks you through on how to get to that state database. And you can actually, it starts at a quarter mile and it goes all the way out to a 5-mile radius. And you can see, if you put in the specific address or the area code, you can see just how many sexual offenders are in certain areas.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Well, Lieutenant Young, I think you made a wonderful report.
Yeah.
I tried.
We appreciate it. We really appreciate it. And we do want you to know that we believe that the police department is doing a good job.
Absolutely.
We just need to try to help you all with these sexual batteries that are going on.
Yes.
Because, I mean, 400% is alarming.
Well, what I can say to that real quick, I did about 3.5, 4 years as a detective prior to get promoted to sergeant, and usually what we get is a lot of them be young ladies in a club area, sit the drink down, someone may slip something in the drink, next thing you know, we get the phone call, hey, I woke up, I didn't have any underwear on, I think I was raped. And per statute, we still have to go ahead and list that as a sexual battery. Or even like a lot of our sexual offenders that we deal with, most of these guys were dealing with a young lady who they thought were of age, and then come to find out once the parents got involved, she was 16 or 15 years old, and then the parents pursued charges, and now this guy is labeled a sexual offender, you know, for the rest of his days. So that's the majority of what we're dealing with.
Okay.
Yes, Lieutenant Young, can you tell us about the Texacop?
The Texatip program, I don't have that in front of me.
If you could send me some information, I could do something.
Yeah, I can go ahead and I can send you that information, but basically the way it works is I can pull them up on my phone right now. Every shift commander, all the lieutenants, captains, and the chief, we pretty much all get our email on our phone, and it's a huge tool because a lot of people don't want to get involved directly when you see something going on, so you pick up your phone, you send a text, and that text will go out to all of our emails saying, hey, I'm looking at this call right now on El Dorado, circling around, I'm looking at a hand-to-hand transaction, you know, it's a white male, black male wearing, you know, blue shirt, jean shorts, and he's driving a black Buick. And we look at that because I'm constantly checking my email all day long, and then the closest unit in the area will respond and see if we can catch them and identify whatever activities they're involved in.
Okay.
But yes, I'll get you that specific information.
That's good to know. Any other questions for Lieutenant Young?
I just want to clarify. You said predators are registered and monitored, correct?
Yes, both.
Offenders are not necessarily, but you all check on them
Right.
every 3 months.
The state requires us, we're mandated by the state to check on the predators every 3 months. But they do not mandate us by state on the offenders, but we do it anyway.
Okay.
We check on them every 3 months. Even I have an offender. Mine's currently incarcerated, so he give me a little bit of break because he's locked up right now, but usually I'm knocking on his door at least once every 3 months. But since they put me back on night shift, I'm out and about anyway, so I'm swinging by all times of night anyway, so.
But is it the same type of consequence for the offenders versus the predator? Because you know the offender is not mandated.
Right, because if an offender commits a violation, I think it's after that second violation, they get bumped up in classification and they then become a predator.
Okay.
Okay. John?
question.
Percentage that involve children, is it a large number or small number, then it involves the children? With adult females, 16, 18, or 17-ish, but what are the ones that are like 12 and under? Is that a large or a small percentage? Or 100 and some odd?
I can't be 100% accurate. I would probably say about 75%. Deal with young kids, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, Ms. Hurd.
Is there a time frame with the dates that they are continue to be in your files, or just what? In other words, if something happened, let's say in 1970, is that still on file?
See, we've had so many changes in legislation since way back then. We didn't have certain things in place back then. So I don't know how far back it goes, but I think maybe starting even prior to that, Jessica Lunsford Act, once they've been convicted of it, they're always going to be monitored going forward. Unless they're incarcerated, they're being monitored by the state. Hopefully that answers.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lieutenant. You did a wonderful job.
Thank you, sir.
All right. At this time, redevelopment project updates.
Yeah, it's on. Let's change it from there. Okay, Board, I just wanted to give you a few brief updates. This is a International Council of, I just want, help me out, Reed, I just had a moment.
I'm sorry. The International Center, Shopping Center. Council Shopping Center.
This is a conference that I went to in Kissimmee. This is where we went and met with different businesses. I have a list of ones that we met with. I just wanted to advise you that I did have the opportunity to go. We went last year. We went to one down in Tampa. I did make a lot of contacts with different businesses there that are looking to relocate into certain areas. I did send out some emails and follow up, and still following up with some of the businesses, trying to get them to come to Daytona Beach. It was amazing, the number of people that were there at the conference. It was over 3,500 attendees for the conference, and a lot of booths, over 100 different businesses that were there looking to move in different areas. I talked with over 30, between 30 and 35 different businesses. I had a copy of the Midtown Redevelopment Plan with me, a map, and the PMG study. It was amazing when a lot of people, when you walk up to them and you pull out that plan and you tell them you're from Daytona Beach, and they know a lot of things that's going on in Daytona Beach. And so I'm looking to get some response from the information that I put out during that time frame. But I want to share that with you. And this year's conference title was "We're Back." So that means that the economy is on its way back and people are looking to invest in different areas. So that's a good thing, and really enjoyed that conference and was able to put out a lot of information regarding Midtown. Jason Jeffries also attended, so we both attended a lot of workshops during that time also to find out how different organizations do business and what they're expecting when they're looking to relocate to different areas. So it was a learning experience and an opportunity to share information regarding our area. The next update is, of course, the meeting that will be held on tomorrow at 4 o'clock here in room 149B. This is the public meeting, the second public meeting that's going to be addressing Orange Avenue. I put a copy in your packet. Also, the residents and businesses along Orange Avenue have been the letter did go out to them. On yesterday, I walked with the aid of my truck down Orange Avenue to each business to make sure they had a copy of this letter. The intent is that we don't want any resident or business to say that they didn't have an opportunity to know what was going on and had their opportunity to come and have input. So we wanted to make sure that they all had this letter in hand. A lot of them did, some didn't, but they should all have a copy of this letter right now. And I invite the board to come out and hear the presentation by Public Works and ask questions, add your input to what is being proposed. My last update is I'm starting early. The city's starting early on the Light Up Midtown event for the Christmas holidays. This year's event is going to be a one-day event. It's going to be a parade and a health fair. The intent is that we get everyone to come out to the parade and lead them into the health fair. Last year, we had over 52 entries for the parade. I'm sending out applications. You have a copy of the application in your packet. You also have a copy of the sponsorship letters and the application for sponsorship. So if you know of anyone who would be interested in being a sponsor, please have them complete that form and send it back in. Also, if you have someone that's interested in participating in the parade, please have them complete the form. I sent out about 60 letters this week for sponsors, and I also sent out letters to the churches asking them to participate in both the health fair and the parade. I do know that our parade is scheduled to be on the same day as the parade is in Holly Hill, but we want residents and we want businesses to realize we want them to be a part of Daytona Beach. They have businesses and they reside in Daytona Beach, so we want them to be a part of our parade. I'm contacting the local bands and at high school and middle school to get ahead of Holly Hill and get them to participate in our parade, because we want to. Last year our parade was great.
Yes, it was.
The elderly people really enjoyed it, and we want to continue that. And I ask your support in getting the word out to the community, and also assist us in getting sponsors so we can do a better job than what we did last year. And that's the end of my report.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. Oh, fill out one of our sheets, please, because we are down to public comments now.
One last thing before I, this is a part of my redevelopment project update. I just want to thank my coworker, Jason Jeffries. He and I and Reed been teaming on some things, and he wrote the report, and I know he's not here, but I want to go on record that I appreciate him assisting us in what he's doing and putting all this stuff together for the declaring rewrite. It's been a task for him, and I know he's got 2 small kids, and I just want to go on record public as saying to him I appreciate him and his assistance.
Thank you. And anyone wishing to make a public comment, if you would fill out one of the forms we have here, we'd like to be able to keep a record of that. And I thank staff for putting those forms together for us.
That's all Charles doing, and when he's not putting together forms, he's also out there doing a lot of volunteer work, as you heard about the parade. It just, it doesn't stop at City Hall when he gets out there and continues to work even on the weekends. Thanks, Charles.
Patricia Jones, 507 South Key Street, Daytona Beach, Florida. I'm back again. And I'm listening to things that are going on. Some of them I still don't understand, some of them, but I'm concerned about the type of businesses that business people you were talking to for bringing into the Midtown area. I would like to know some of those. What type of businesses you were talking about?
Basically, I talked to a lot of restaurants, different restaurants because I know we want a restaurant in our area, grocery store chains, Publix, any type of, and all types of grocery stores that we can attract to come to our area. Wendy's, McDonald's, fast food chains that were in the area. We talked to Kinko's, some of the, we need some these type of businesses in our area. We talked to Subway, because the university, we had a concern with the kids at the university saying that at night, once the cafeteria closed, they don't basically have anywhere that they can go within walking distance to get something to eat. Different types of businesses that I felt that would be attracted to our area. I do have a list if you want me to provide that for you. Right off the top of my head, I can't think of all of them.
But Charles, I think it's fair to say what you did look for are those that fit the marketing plan that we did.
Right.
And that the key was to get that kind of information in the hands of the people to show them that the data supports certain kinds of retail businesses and shops. Right. And I am sure that Charles did not talk to any convenience stores, no automotive places.
No, none whatsoever.
So.
But basically, we looked. You would be amazed the fact that the study that PMG did with all the statistics and the data that was in that particular study. A lot of people were very interested in that. It really helped us along the way with the master plan that we had, because a lot of them, when they looked at our area, they kind of backed off a little bit, but when they saw that Midtown redevelopment plan, the master plan, and they saw that I had that PMG study, then a lot of them saying, well, email it to me. Mm-hmm. And so that helped us a long way by what we already had put together in a package.
That's wonderful.
Thank you. You answered my question. I didn't want a comprehensive. I just wanted to have some general idea of what was going to be coming in, or what, the people, the type services that would be coming in. Because like you say, we don't need another convenience store. Mm-hmm. We do need a grocery store. But we don't need another convenience store. So I was just concerned about who you were talking to, a general idea. So I thank you very much for that.
And we're glad you're here again, Mrs. Jones.
John Nicholson, 413 North Granbury Avenue. It's a sensitive topic, but after a city commission meeting last month, a woman that goes to all the city commission meetings, who hates my guts big time, caught me at the back door and talked to me for over an hour and a half. Her philosophy was that no money has been spent on Midtown, and there's been no new buildings built in Midtown in the last 50 years. And one of the comments I made to her is like, what about Hope 6? And she goes, what's Hope 6? And it's like, it's 40 brand-new buildings. It's like 3 years old. It's not very old. So 25 years ago, when I came into town, Charles Cherry and I didn't get along. And oftentimes we'd get these little fights. And one time at a meeting, he popped up and said, you know, you never give any money to Midtown. And we were going through this big breakdown of where we could save money. And they had several meetings that lasted hours, cutting $10 here, $100 there, that kind of stuff. And he asked for $300,000. Okay, now we're cutting pennies, and he wants $300,000 more. And his comment was that Midtown is sick and tired of paying all the taxes for the city because the Beachside doesn't pay any. So I went to Morgan Gilreath, and I said, is that true? And he goes, no. So I went to our city manager, and he goes, no. So I went through 11 years of agenda items, okay? And I marked out those that were specifically for Beachside and those were specifically for Midtown. It broke down to Midtown had an average of 93% of all the funds okayed by the city commission went to Midtown. Less than 6% of the funds went to Beachside. Charles said, that can't be. I said, here are the numbers. We talked about land off the tax roll. I said it was 28 plus on average. And he said, no. So Gilreath says, yeah, it's 27.8. That's close to 28. All of the things I'm saying about is you don't realize how much has been built on Midtown until you take time out and look. She had never realized that Hope 6 were new buildings. Oh, that's just HUD housing. It doesn't matter. That's not new buildings. When you look at what you've had over 300 buildings built in Midtown since I moved to the city. There have been only 30 buildings built on the beach side in that time period. You have 10 times the number of buildings. You have 10 times the number of facilities that the beachside has. You don't realize that until you see it or hear it. She was unaware of the fact that you have 3 gymnasiums and we don't have any. You have 3 swimming pools and we don't have any. You have dozens of basketball courts, tennis courts, baseball fields. We have 2 tennis courts, no football fields, no baseball fields, no soccer fields. We don't have what you all have. You have a lot of physical facilities here that you are blessed with that you can use. They added 2 new, during a recession when we had no money, 2 new nice buildings were built. A nice swimming pool was built. Look at your blessings, the things that you have. You keep saying nothing's ever changes on Midtown. And you've missed all the wonderful things that have happened over here, all the opportunities that you have over here. A young lady came to a meeting one time and said...
No, we only have a 2-minute limit.
I know. Joe Harris Park and the band facility there, the amphitheater. She said, we never use it. Can I use it? And she used it once or two times. You have a lot of facilities here. Look at the blessings that you do have. Thank you.
All right. Any other public comment? All right. Board comments. We'll begin with our newest board member, Bishop Barhu.
Well, I just want to say thank you for having me, allowing me to come and serve. I've enjoyed the meeting. Hopefully, it can be a certain blessing, and I will take this back also to the planning board. Thank you, Michael. Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Williams.
First of all, I want to say welcome to Bishop Barhu, and it's refreshing to see pastors on in this part of the process. The reason being is because you have access to so many people, and there's so many lives that can be changed once the light bulb comes on. Years ago, I did a music workshop, and I do that from time to time. And I love doing workshops with children because it's such a wonderful thing once you see the light bulb come on in a human being's life. And we have an opportunity through our churches, through our civic organizations, to do that, to turn the light bulb on. And that's what I would really, really encourage the Midtown Board to do as an individual, in your churches, in your civic organizations, to encourage the people to try and turn on the light bulb, because once you get the ball rolling, then you can just let it roll. And for the board, and this has been on my impressing my mind, and it's been in my spirit lately, is for us to remember that we are representing the community.
Yes.
And to remember that we need to be pushing forward the concerns, the thoughts, the desires of the community. And sometimes I've noticed in many types of organizations, you get in meetings, and we start pushing forward our personal agendas. Not here, but I'm just saying other places. And that we always keep in mind that we're the voice of the community, and that's what we need to do. But we have to first hear the voice of the community before we can express the voice of the community. And lastly, we planned and I did inform you all last time we were here, that we planned a kickoff for our community watch. It was postponed. It was supposed to have been last Monday. It was postponed because the building that we were going to use, the air conditioning went out, and that was a no-no. So, but we tentatively have rescheduled it for September 30th. So if you could put that on your calendar, we'd love to see as many of you all out as we can.
Where's the location?
It will be held at the Dickinson Center here on the corner of MLK and Orange Avenue. Yes, in the activity building.
What time?
It'll be 5:30 on the 30th. So please, if you're not doing anything, I'm going to harass you all between now and then, but thank you.
All right. Dr. Jameson?
I want to welcome our new member, and that's it.
Mr. McGee?
I have. It's the pleasure of being here.
All right.
Good night.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Ford?
Just want to welcome Bishop Barber. I've known him for a long time, and now I'm not going to kid on him.
Thank you.
Just with some very interesting information shared, especially about, since I was a part of the initial planning with the comprehensive plan, I'm learning a lot about that and figuring out different things, but I do want us to always still come back to talking about that assisted living, because that was a concerning when you talk about the location, but I know we're getting that at a later date. Thank you.
Mrs. Hurd?
Good afternoon and welcome to the board, Bishop Bahu, one of my past co-workers. We're glad to have you here. Going back to the report from last month, did you all receive any information from the Johnson Service Station and the Canopy? Thank you. I have a concern of the parking on MLK north of Orange Avenue on the east side. You know, people just disregard the yellow markings, and that is a dangerous curb there, intersection. It needs to be looked into. People stop, talk, and they park illegally. Please look into that. I'm sorry they have businesses there, but a law is a law. Also, I can understand what John is saying about our blessings. There are blessings within Midtown, But even at that, I don't myself look at the HOPE program as 300, 400 individual houses that were built in the Midtown area. I look at it as one of the projects, one project that was done. Not knowing that so much money came from the city, but I thought it was basically federal monies too. You mentioned about parks and things that are over here. They're not in Midtown. They are not in Midtown. The new buildings and everything, yes, George Ingram is there. They took away our baseball park and a few other things. And the pool is there, which is not really used that much by the community, but by others. The Yvonne Scarlett Golden building, I would say it until the end, that it should have been placed in Midtown, where she was born, where she was educated, where she was basically married and everything else, and it was taken out of the Midtown area. If people don't know things, they should ask for background information. But there are people who just want to be seen, want their name out there, and that is basically what was done. And I still say we're blessed, but there is plenty work to be done in the Midtown area. I'm not what you say trying to compare Midtown with the beach, but I want everything to be done fair. That's all I'm saying. This is why I ask you about the development that is going on the East Side International that they were talking about and probably will do. We've been talking about this project for the longest that we're trying to do, or even clean up some of the places around here, and we're slow about it. How are we going to develop Midtown when we don't clean up the little things that we report now? Thank you.
I want to thank everyone for coming out. I thank the work that staff has done, because they've done a lot of work lately. Things are getting done. I do appreciate the fact that our master plan is progressing very well. We're moving expeditiously and putting things in place that will cause things to be happening on a more consistent basis, that we don't have to look at each thing and make a special exception for this and a special exception for that. And it will change the face of Midtown. I thank all the board members that came out, because we realize this is a volunteer board, but we appreciate the work that you're doing. One of the things that we have to understand is that in the city of Daytona Beach, we're too small to keep trying to go against this department and that department, this section and that section. We don't need to do that. That has no place in progressing our city or even progressing Midtown. We do know beyond the shadow of any doubt that there are certain things that have been neglected in the Midtown area. One of my major concerns, you always hear me talk about it, is that we need high-speed internet access available in the Midtown area. One of the things that's amazing to me is that UVerse, the infrastructure to even get UVerse, is not in place in Midtown. And those kind of things we have to rectify. I do want to mention, I want to piggyback on what Mr. Williams said, that we do need to realize we are the voice of the community and be sure to do things that are going to help the community and not our own personal agendas. There comes a point where we've got to be concerned about moving the mass forward. I want to thank my good friend and brother, Bishop Barhu, for being on the board. I thank all of you that are in the audience for being here. We haven't recognized her, but I'm glad to see Miss Washington here. She's on the planning board. I was happy to see the commissioner here also. That's our commissioner. She's the commissioner for Midtown. So we need to recognize her when she comes. Once again, John, we are so glad that you came out. We appreciate your input, and it helps us to better see what's really going on in the entire city. I thank Ms. Jones for being here, and keep on coming. Bring some more with you, because the more people realize what's going on, the better we can move forward. And as always, Ms. Grooms, you're still the best secretary around. Yes, sir. Go ahead, Mr. Bryant.
Last comment, I promise. Some of you all have a copy of the application, the board application for Midtown. You're coming up for review in December. We want to go ahead, if you're interested in staying on the board, please complete that and get it back to me so we can go ahead and get started on getting you reapplying for next year. Thank you.
All right. And Ms. Hurd, you had something you wanted to mention?
Okay, he put me on the spot. He thought he did. Since I must say something, let's not forget tomorrow, 9/11. 9/11, September 11th, the men and firemen, civic people, policemen, and everybody else who lost their lives several years ago in New York City. Thank you, Bishop Tooley.
Thank you, Ms. Hurd. Another thing that I wanted to mention, the gentleman that rendered our invocation this evening, Bishop Samuel Butts, is celebrating his 7th anniversary at Butts Temple, at Butts Miracle Temple, at 5 p.m. at 636 Hawk Street in our city. Please, ma'am, please, sir, if you can, go and support him. I'm sorry, I didn't give you the date on that. That will be on September the 14th. September 14th. And he is it begins at 5 p.m. And he is a gentleman that has helped the city and Midtown quite a bit. So if we can, please, board members, go and at least make an appearance. And if there's no other business to come before the board, Attorney, are we okay?
Yep, we're good, thank you.
Okay. This meeting, well, I'll do it the correct way. Is there a motion for adjournment?
So move.
The meeting is adjourned.